It's hard for us guys to admit how emotional being successful is. Like if we know there's something in life we can succeed at, we'll put all of our effort into it.
Bill and Pam, welcome back to Focus. It's great to see you.
We always feel so at home here. It's like coming home.
Oh, that's sweet. That whole idea of secret code, I love the concept of your book, The Secret Language of Successful Couples. Because, doggone it, most of us husbands, we're still trying to figure out this code. I've been married to Jean 38 years. I got 3 of the 4 digits. I just need you to help me get that 4th digit, and I can unlock her heart. No, but it's a wonderful concept.
Yeah, the way I like to set it up for guys is us guys, when we get married, we think we're marrying one of our buddies. She just looks way better than all the guy friends we have. And then we get married and we realize I married a woman, and I don't know how this works. And it always amazes me that marriage is a complex relationship, but it often comes down to simple things.
Now, what's so funny with that comment, there's going to be people watching on YouTube and people listening to us, and they're going, it was never difficult for us. I have met these couples when I speak, and they'll come up and say, you know what, we just never had a problem. We were just meant to be. And you go, wow, that's like a 1% thing, right?
Right. Because we wish that.
Most people do not have that experience.
Well, and in fairness to people who grew up in healthy homes, I think most of us did not. But for people who grew up in healthy homes, where parents modeled this for them, actually trained them how to do this, for those couples, it seems normal.
But that's not our background. My parents were divorced. My dad was an alcoholic. So I grew up with just turmoil. Like every family holiday, dial 911. It was just like craziness.
Well, I call that the normal dysfunctional family.
Right.
Sure.
That's about 90% of the culture, I think, grows up in that kind of home.
In contrast to that, Pam started working with our boys when they were young on how to have a conversation with a female.
Like I'd take them to the park and I would ask a question, kick the ball, and they couldn't kick the ball back to me until they answered the question and asked me a question. Because I wanted them to be good conversationalists with their wives someday in the future. Because that was just not the norm. You're right. The dysfunction is more the norm. And when I met Bill, I realized, wow, this home is dysfunctional too. He took me home to meet his parents.
Like in my home, if people were communicating, it usually involved yelling and throwing things.
Right.
Oh. And so I didn't see it modeled. Like how do you resolve conflict? How do you talk to your wife? How do you create an environment where your wife likes being around you and talks well of you? I was like, I have no idea how to do that.
So Bill and I were like desperate. Bill likes to say we just knew a few things when we met each other.
Right, 3 things specifically. We knew that we loved Jesus with all our heart. We knew we were madly in love with each other, and we knew we had no idea what we were doing.
Not a clue.
So then the question is, how do codes relate to marriage?
I started thinking, okay, is there a username and password that would give me access to Pam's heart? Because I've noticed when I accidentally get connected to her heart, she's really easy to be with and fun to talk with. But if I miss the connection, it's a lot of static.
Now, here's the secret part. Pam, you don't say to Bill, here's my username, here's my passport. For some reason, you guys want to keep that all secret.
Right.
You don't want to tell us. What is going on with that?
Yeah.
Just give us the username and password.
And sometimes we're not even aware. That's why we can't give it. Yeah.
So what I discovered is my username I was given on my wedding day, which is husband. So that gets me into the conversation because I'm the only husband Pam has. The password that gets me into her heart is the word security. And I remember when I first heard that, as a young married guy, guys would tell me, hey, your wife needs to feel secure. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I'm strong. I work hard. I'm going to provide. Like, what's so hard about this? But then I realized there's got to be more to this because there's something about it I'm not getting. And so I finally came to the realization that what security means for Pam is she's asking the question every day that she's with me. And the question is it safe to be who I am today around you?
Because we change a lot. Women have plenty of hormones. And so every day is a little bit different than the day before. Then one common denominator is change. And so we are asking every day, do you love me as this version today?
Right, because I did notice some days Pam wakes up and she's like the easiest person in my life to get along with. There's other days that she's like really mellow and kind of laid back and don't want to do much. There's other days that everything in life is frantic and we got to get on right now. And then there's just some days in our home where there's a no-fly zone. And the only thing I would say to her on those days is, would you like flowers or chocolate?
Yeah, 70% dark chocolate. Yeah, some daffodils.
So I was noticing it happening, but didn't know how to work with it. And I had to come to realize that she just needs to hear, hey, the person you are today is okay with me. And looking back, I realized I got introduced to this on our honeymoon, but didn't realize it.
Oh.
Yeah, we were, okay, so we do what honeymooners do. We go out to the nicest restaurant. This is up in Reno. And
Spend more money than you have.
Exactly. You know it's bad when they don't even put the prices on the menu, right? And so it was a lovely time, and we came home, and we had a fireplace in the room, and so there's a reason that we also wrote Red Hot Monogamy book. So we enjoyed all that, and I just started to share. I thought Bill wanted to know everything about me, so I started to share.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. So I started to share every boyfriend I've ever had since like grade 7. Grade.
Pam has an epic history.
Right. And so
this is your wedding night?
I know, right? Like really bad.
You should have called 1-800-A-FAMILY.
Right.
We could have helped you with
Yeah,
that.
obvious. No, yeah. But Bill was like trying to hang in there with me, and
Good
he
for
fell
you.
asleep
Fell
somewhere,
asleep.
when I was about 14. Okay. And
Not that she remembers.
so I'm like, he fell asleep. I can't believe he fell asleep on me. And so I start crying. You know the kind of crying, okay, women, be honest, the kind of crying you do that it shakes the bed to try to get him to wake up again, that kind of crying. And so
I wake up and I'm like, Pam, what's wrong? Like, I thought we had a great night and like our honeymoon's fantastic. What's going on? You're crying like crazy.
You totally fell asleep on me.
Yeah.
Like, I thought you loved me and wanted to know everything about me, but like you just fell asleep.
Pam, I was just tired. Like I think you're the most fascinating person I've ever met, which is why I married you. And I plan to spend the rest of my life getting to know you. I was literally just tired.
And I'm like, oh, great. And so then I start singing every country and western song that I knew growing up. And the night ended about 2 a.m. with me holding my hairbrush, singing Stand By Your Man. Yeah. And finally I let him go to sleep. And the next day, about 6 a.m, I wake up and I roll over and Bill's not in bed. I'm like, oh, I've driven him from bed again. And I look out and he is out in a snowstorm, and he has dug our little car out from under this blizzard, and he was putting chains on so we could drive and then fly to see my side of the family and celebrate our wedding, on that side. And so I got in the car and I'm like, honey, if there's like a, test that husbands have to pass.
Which there is.
And I think that you totally passed with flying colors, and I will never test you again.
Which I think she sincerely meant.
But it's impossible.
10 minutes later.
But this need in a woman's life, it's so pervasive. Like it's always rolling.
So that's on the security side.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of being secure, you'll love me even if.
And the key is it's safe to be who you are today around me.
Okay.
Because when women feel like it's safe, everything calms down.
Hey, allow me to interrupt for just a moment here to say how much we appreciate you watching. Now, if you find value in this content, subscribe by clicking below. It'll be a big help to us. Let's go ahead and return to the show.
Before we move to your password for Bill, for men, we're in the 101 territory here, right?
Yeah.
Password 101.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll struggle to understand that.
Well, this is not a language we speak.
Correct.
Like Jim, I would never come to you today and say, hey, Jim, are you feeling safe today?
We have never
Yeah,
had
thanks
that
for laughing.
conversation
That's
with
it.
you two.
What's the purpose of that question?
Let's go play golf.
Yeah, like we know safety's somewhere on the list because you have to be alive to live your adventure.
Yeah.
But the goal is the adventure. It's not the safety.
Right. Actually,
So-
the less safe, the better the adventure.
And if you moaned about being like unsafe too long, I go, Jim, man up, come on. You would go, oh yeah. Because we just don't speak this language with each other.
But that's, I guess, the question I'm aiming at is, what are we looking for then? Help me with the ingredients of this marriage stew. What do I need to put in the pot to make her happy?
So the first is a decision that I'm going to assume that the security need is always on the table, and I'm going to address it first.
What does that sound like in a conversation? I'm
So-
sorry to go to 101 here.
No. It's a great question because it's one that should be asked.
Yeah.
So what's the first thing men complain about? My wife talks too long. So the first way to provide security is I'm going to listen to you until you stop. And what she's doing is she's connecting her life to you to see if you're a safe person in her life.
And
Wow.
the more she connects her life to you, the more she feels safe, and the more love will come towards you, which that has a good payoff. If the guys think about the long haul benefits, it's like, okay, I can hang in there. Yes.
And the other thing I would say to guys is show affection when she's irritated. It's the last thing we want to do. Like when our wife is like, at us, we don't want to show affection. So we try to argue our way out of it. The arguing, like what's happening when she's irritated is an alarm's going off. Something's not right, something's not right, something's not right. When we try to fix it, it's like, oh, something's really not right because now he's defending himself. And now we're increasing the alarm. Where if the only reason she's irritated with you is her whole life's tied up with you and she wants to be close to you. But the atmosphere doesn't feel right to say that, so she's creating irritation.
Pam, we've gone with security, the wife's code.
Right.
What is your code for Bill?
So my username was wife when I got married. And that secret code that unlocks my husband's heart is success. Guys want to be successful in all areas of life. Of course, they want to be successful at work and they want to be successful in the community and in the church and with the kids, but they definitely want to be successful with their wives. In fact, the number one thing that's like a complaint that we hear from men is there's just no pleasing the woman. Like they just don't know how to succeed.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Interesting.
Like, number one way. And so the cry of their heart is, how can I feel successful, with this woman in my life? And so they want to be successful with their wives. And it sometimes shows up early in a relationship, and it can be confused with like maybe the male ego, because like a lot of times we hear about the male ego. And so Bill and I, we came back from our honeymoon trip, and one of the first things we did is we went to a birthday party. Now, we lived in Bakersfield at the time, and everybody has a swimming pool. No matter what season, the parties are out by the pool. So we were dancing deckside, and Bill's like a great dancer.
It was going well.
Yeah, he's like a wonderful dancer, and so they were playing like our song, which is like Unforgettable. And at the end, he just like does this big dip with me and he drops me on the ground.
Dropped her right on the
So
ground.
I'm in the ground. I'm like, honey, why am I laying on the cement here?
And trying to keep it secret, I whispered to her, I just ripped my pants.
And I spun him around and I looked and I'm like, you guys. And I turned him to the whole audience, all of our friends. Hey, look at Bill just ripped his pants. And I thought it was funny. All our friends thought it was funny. Bill did not think it was funny.
Was not enjoying the moment.
Right.
I can see that.
Super silent ride home for 20 minutes. And I realized, okay, God, I think I did something wrong. And I think that pointing out flaws in my husband in public, not really a good idea. It's not even a great idea in private, but let alone in public. And so I thought, I should be like, how can I help you succeed? Like, can I go get a jacket? Like, is there another pair of pants? I mean, I should have, like, that should have been what.
It's hard for us guys to admit how emotional being successful is. Like, if we know there's something in life we can succeed at, we'll put all of our effort into it. We will focus, we'll give it our all. If we face something we believe we cannot succeed at, we're going to run away from it. And it happens in marriage all the time. Like men who feel like they can communicate with their wives, they'll jump in and communicate. If they feel like it's not going well, they just back off and they talk less and less because they're not succeeding. Men who feel like they can make decisions with their wives will jump in and make decisions and look forward to meeting. Men who cannot, like they feel like they're always getting criticized, always getting run over, they just start to avoid it. So men will spend lots and lots and lots of hours at work because they know they can succeed there. And they come home and they don't know how to succeed at home.
They come home late.
Well, they do retreat.
They retreat.
Emotionally.
And we're kind of afraid to admit how much influence our wives have on us if they were willing to compliment and to be proud of us.
So conversely, God kind of clues us in if we're praying, okay, God, how can I help my husband succeed? And just a few years later, we had just moved. Bill was taking over a pastorate, and we had to move from a beautiful 3-bedroom, 2-bath house to like a little apartment. and I was not very happy. And so like I was complaining, like, how long do we have to live like this? Because it was so expensive in San Diego where we had moved.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing seemed affordable. And so we were going to live in this little apartment that didn't even let kids play like on the grass, on the sidewalk. It's like kids couldn't exist. And so I was miserable, and I was trying to make everybody else miserable too.
And I was feeling like I'm failing my family, and there's no way I'm going to please my wife.
And so one day, I was just in misery, and I went to the walk-in closet to get something off the shelf. And I didn't even remember why I went there. And I just sat down on top of this dirty load of laundry, and I started to cry. And I said, God, this is crazy. You know, I have a husband who loves me, and I have 2 kids that are healthy. And like, why am I so miserable here? Like, I complain all the time, and oh yeah, that makes him want to run home and spend time with me. Yeah. Lord, you have to give me an answer to this pain. So I went to the Bible, and I began to look at all the verses that had been underlined and starred and asterisked and highlighted. And I came across this verse that was super familiar, and it was out of Ephesians 5.
Which says, wives, respect your husbands.
And so I said, okay, what does respect really mean? I think, God, there should be like a loophole for times like this. And so I got out my Bible and all my Bible study tools because I was looking for the loophole, how I could not have to respect Bill at this time. And instead, God showed me the formula. What does respect and honor really mean? And so basically, God said, I want you to see Bill as God sees Bill. I mean, worthy of honor and respect because I gave him to you as a gift. I want you to speak to words that I would, God, use to speak to Bill, words that would edify and encourage and lift him up. Life-giving words. Pam, I want you to serve alongside of Bill, help him be successful in this new pastorate as a helpmeet. That's what I've called you to be. And so I called Bill on the phone and I'm like, hey, you want to go lunch? And Bill said,
I think so.
He wasn't sure what he was going to get.
Because there's been a lot of criticism up till that point.
But over lunch, I shared what the Holy Spirit taught me in the Word. And I said, honey, you know, if I don't get all the things, the new house, the new cars, the things that I think that I need to be happy, I just want you to know that before God, right now, I commit 100% I am on your team.
And internally, I if I were to say what happened internally, it was kind of a great big yes, because something turned on inside when I realized Pam believes in me, and Pam is going to help me with whatever God leads us on. Pam's going to be all in, and I don't know how to describe it, but her belief in me turned me into a better pastor and a better husband.
Your awareness of one another is a critical ingredient to this.
Indeed.
And I'm thinking, Pam, of wives who are saying, yeah, but you don't know my husband. They haven't expressed that. And husbands, that you don't know my wife. All she does is talk, whatever it might be. And so it feels like metaphorically, those people that are not leaning in are backing up. And that's not healthy because you won't get to a better place by backing up or getting reclusive emotionally. How do you arrest that sinister side? This is never getting better. I'm just going to go watch the football game, eat dinner down here, and let it go.
You know, what I encourage wives is, you know what? It has to start with somebody. Why not let love start with you? Because there's no downside if we choose to be a loving person towards our mate. We become a loving person in all of our life. Our kids will love us better. We'll be happier emotionally. We will see God whisper like he did to me when I was sitting on the load of laundry. And he will bring us to places in God's word that will fortify us and give us hope on the horizon. And so you become a better person if you lean in to Jesus, if you lean into the word, if you lean into, you know what? Hey, maybe it's only one-sided right now, but I believe you are a big God. And that if I help him succeed somehow, some way, you're going to catch him up to your plan, just like you've caught me up, God.
When I think that's exactly right. And I guess, Bill, as you answer, this idea of the insanity of doing it the same way, and it's not working.
Well,
I mean, but we do that as humans.
We do it all the time.
If you think about it, it really is it's fruitless.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
you got to get out of that groove and try something different.
and in a more positive sense,
Yeah.
like in marriage, it only takes one breakthrough to set things right. And, it's the same way we started this with usernames and passwords. If you're a little bit off on the password, you can't get in. But all you have to do is get the password right once, and you're in. You get access. So if what you're doing isn't working, try something different.
Yeah.
Man, if you're having trouble listening to your wife, just set a goal. Like I've got a capacity of 2.5 minutes right now. I'm going to stretch it to 5. And when I'm done, I'm just going to compliment her. I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to solve anything. I'm just going to compliment her on something and see if it makes a difference. Because if you train yourself to operate different, you're going to get different results. And if you hit the breakthrough, everything breaks open and the marriage starts to work. You got married for a reason. It can be revived.
Yeah.
But not if you're stuck in the same patterns.
In what you're saying, which is so true, many people that sit across this table from us, John, it fits that same idea. The only thing you control is you.
Yeah.
That's right.
You don't control your spouse.
Yeah.
You really don't. So do something differently
but
from you.
You don't control your spouse, but you influence your spouse.
Oh, yeah, both positively and
Yeah.
negatively.
And if you're willing to do something different, it will have some influence. So, it's worth working at.
Yeah, but don't expect to do the same thing and have your spouse respond differently.
Right.
That's not going to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why this seems mysterious is there's a line of trust in every relationship. And that line of trust, a lot of times, like if you are below that line of trust, there's going to be arguments and there's going to be discouragement and negativity and
everything's a
no
problem.
red hot monogamy.
Yeah.
But if you pop above that line of trust, all of a sudden, wow, we're getting along. This is wonderful. This is encouraging.
And marriage seems like one of the easier relationships on earth if you're above the
That's
line
where
of
you wanna
trust.
be.
And it goes back to that verse that I mentioned earlier. Like Bill always says, why is there different commands in
Because
that
husbands
Ephesians?
are told to love your wives as Christ loved the church, and wives respect your husbands. It's because of these basic needs. If a woman's security need is met and a man's success need is met, you pop above the line of trust, and marriage becomes very doable.
Hey, allow me to interrupt for just a moment here to say how much we appreciate you watching. Now, if you find value in this content, subscribe by clicking below. It'll be a big help to us. Let's go ahead and return to the show.
We didn't get to something I wanted to, and that is this acrostic that you use for marriage. So let's move through that, maybe quickly list them, and then we'll go back and pick off a couple.
So if you look at the main areas that we need to unlock success for him and security for her, it would be the mystery of love. How are we different and how can we use those differences for us?
The M in marriage. Yep.
And then the A in marriage is affection. How can we just be kind? Like, honestly, Bill and I think if we were just nice to each other, the divorce rate would go down. I mean, just that one alone. And then recreation, developing that active, friendship. Couples that work out together actually have more red hot monogamy and they live longer. Okay, that's some good things, right? And then resolving conflict. That is a tough one for many people, especially folks like Bill and I that come from crazy dysfunction, right? And then intimacy is the I in marriage and a little bit of red hot monogamy. And that happens when you live and love above that line of trust. And then activating alarms. There are alarms in each of our relationships that are kind of like warning signals. Just picture a yellow flashing light and God's trying to get your attention. And then golden goals. If we're like pulling together in the same direction, it is going to be a higher calling than just my happiness, than just, one of our personal happiness and fulfillment. If we're pulling together for a cause and a reason.
So golden goals is not retirement fund.
No. It's like
down there
every day.
in our golden years.
Yeah,
we're
let's
gonna
pull together every day.
So these are golden opportunities.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
And then lastly, the E in marriage is expressing yourself. Finding those uniquenesses in your spouse and applauding and running alongside those uniquenesses and working those uniquenesses into your marriage and family so that everybody's stronger and healthier.
Okay, so let me pick some of these apart. We'll see. Mystery of love.
Yeah.
You know Charlie Brown.
Yes.
What I'm hearing with that is wah, wah, wah. Mystery of love. Bill, what does that mean?
The key is, I mean, it's actually not that complicated. It's accepting the fact you married somebody different than you.
Okay.
You
So that
marry
is
what-
the mystery.
You marry what you don't have.
Yeah.
And because you don't have it, you're always trying to figure it out. It's why Romans 15:7 says, accept one another, just as Christ accepted you. It doesn't say understand each other. It says accept. And I've been watching Pam for 45 years. I'm still waiting for the day that I can say I fully understand her. But I still marvel at her. She responds in ways that I could never
That's
respond.
good.
Yeah. She gets excited with our grandkids in a way I could never do. She has this very creative side to her that's fun to be around but hard to imitate. And the mystery of love is just accepting the fact that I married what I don't have, and I need to stay curious for the rest of my life.
And I married what I don't have, in that, if I really take advantage of the concept that God wants Bill to succeed, then I see this amazing pastor, and he is so godly, and he's a wise father because he's fathering our kids differently and better than the dad that he had growing up. And so it helps you see, if you step into that mystery, it helps you see your spouse from God's point of view. And that's the secret.
Okay, we're not going to cover all of marriage, but I do think two that I want to hit because they're so critical. Resolving conflict. I mean, that's like you got to know how to do that to survive. Let's hit that one.
And activating alarms kind of goes with that. Is that God loves your marriage so much that he wants to get your attention when there's going to be some conflict, or there is some conflict that needs resolved. Like, we were in a hotel and we were fast asleep. And all of a sudden, the lights came on automatically. The phone was ringing. There was buzzers going off, and we're hearing firemen knocking on all the doors. Fire, fire, fire! Like, you could not ignore those alarms. They were like so apparent. And that's the same in a relationship. Sometimes there's toxic things going on.
But the problem was not in our room.
Right.
The problem was in a storage room where a fire had broke out. And even though the alarm was going off and interrupting our life, the problem was not with us.
So sometimes it's circumstances that are difficult. Like, let's say my cancer, that's not a part, like that was entered into our marriage. But sometimes it is things from your past, and there are alarms that are going off, and God is saying, Pam, you need to address this like father thing. Your dad was not a good dad, but I'm a great heavenly father. So let's heal your heart. Bill, you need to address this mom thing. Yeah, your mom was like, she struggled
completely
with
run by fear and very controlling.
And I don't want you to run by fear, and I don't want your marriage to run by fear. So there are areas of growth that God's pointing out for the benefit of the marriage, for the benefit of the family. And when those alarms go off, that is definitely the time to pick up the phone, call Focus on the Family, get to one of those conferences, make a counseling appointment. Bill does. He does a lot of relationship coaching through the Zoom now too. And, reach out to the marriage that you think is the strongest in your world, in your church, and just say, can we have some coffee? Can we just get together? And it's amazing what one friend can help another friend do.
So, in regards to resolving conflict, one of the things we encourage all couples to do is make a series of decisions about how you're going to face conflict. Because conflict's normal in marriage. You have an incredible amount of influence on each other, and often things you do, they just get to you. Like, I know there's two looks that Pam gets. One of the looks I love. And when she looks at me with that look, I'm like, I'll run through a brick building for that look. And then there's this other look that just like pierces the heart and slices and dices. And nobody else on earth can do that. So conflict in marriage, it is normal. The problem with conflict is it's almost completely emotionally based. You very seldom enter a conflict because, well, I've been thinking about something, and then you get upset about it. No, you get upset because it emotionally stirred you up. And the thing I wish somebody had told me earlier in marriage is that our emotions follow our decisions. So if you decide how you're going to face conflict, it helps you. You harness all the emotional energy and you use it for yourself rather than just cause damage with it.
And so conflict covenant, a conflict commitment, that is an excellent place to start. Like, I promise not to run over you with the truck. It's a good thing, to have in that conflict covenant. I'm going to throw the word divorce out. I'm not going to use it anymore. I'm not going to swear at you. I'm not going to hit you. Basics should be in there. But also, like, where will you go? Who will you go to when you're in conflict that can't be resolved? And like, what are the healthy words? What are the healthy choices to make when we don't see eye to eye?
And Pam and I, we actually decided we're going to follow a system. When we have to have a conflict with each other, we're actually going to follow a step-by-step system. Because we both grew up in crazy homes, so if we just do it spontaneously, we can revert to some of the old habits we grew up around.
Like, conflict can build you or it can tear your marriage apart.
So we built our system around the word solve. The S is we're going to seek God together. So before we have difficult conversations, we invite Jesus into the middle of it. And sometimes it's a really smooth prayer, like, God, we need your help, and, give us your words. Sometimes it's pretty raw.
Like, I don't really like the guy right now, so help me out, God.
Like, God, if you don't help us right now, we're going to have a bad day. So, like, come on, show up.
Or something worse. Yeah.
And then the O is for open the conversation. And that is just giving each other the opportunity to vent.
Who wants to start first, basically?
Right. And sometimes we need something physical to hold on to, like a piece of a carpet.
Yeah.
Where okay, Pam, you got the floor. And she'll give me the floor. And as long as you're holding the carpet, you get to talk. And we used to have a tennis ball that we would use, the ball's in your court, but...
I'm a little bit like, the ball's in your court. Yeah, it could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Throw it to me.
And we let that process go until it calms. And as soon as it calms down, then we shift to the next one, which is look deeper. And we're looking for the real issue. Like, what I've noticed in working with couples is couples argue, but they never get to the real issue. And so they don't solve anything. They just unload a bunch of emotion, and then they go their separate ways. Yeah. And I can tell you, for me, if I'm in conflict with Pam and it's because I caused it, it's usually because I feel left out. And that comes from being the youngest in my family who didn't get taken seriously and having a very controlling mom. So I feel like I got left out of a lot of decisions in my life growing up. And when Pam leaves me out of a decision, I get frustrated. And so that's almost always the issue if I've caused it.
Yeah.
And then the two others are verify options. Like, there's always ways to approach a problem.
Let's brainstorm, bring all kinds of ideas.
And often we get stuck on two, and we fight for who's right. So we look for options. And then finally the E is we evolve to the answer. Because some things in life you can't solve. Like, if you have a special needs child, you don't solve it. In the journey we've been through going through chemo, you endure it, you don't solve it. You just have to get through it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to evolve into the answer and remember, we don't have an answer, but we have each other.
And we have a God who loves us.
The strength is in our connection.
So activating alarms, it's catching my attention. You've talked about how you process and problem solve. I did like in the book, you talked about that interrupted motivation.
Right.
Money is usually a battle zone. So I was going to ask you originally.
Usually, always.
Give me an example of where you didn't run that smoothly between the two of you. You didn't get to that end result. I would think at times money, for most couples, is going to be an issue.
We actually have two, painful but now funny stories that we went through financially. One involved a move Pam made, and another one involved a move that I made. So the first one was Pam came home from a conference that she had gone to when she was young and she was wanting to be a writer.
An entrepreneur.
And she went to a conference on how to become a writer. And she came home with an announcement.
It really was I just spent this amount of money, and it was more money than we had agreed upon that you could spend independently. And so I walked in and I said, I'm going to tell you something, and you're not going to like it.
Oh my gosh.
But I need you to say, I love you, and we'll get through this together. And so then I shared my magic bean story, and Bill replied with...
And through gritted teeth, I said, I love you, and we're going to get through this together.
And so he was very kind to me, even though I had well overspent what was available. And on something that did not work to move anything forward in my particular, writing,
and then
speaking.
Dial it forward.
Yeah, 10 years later, Okay, 10 years later, Bill.
Well, we got a small inheritance from Pam's dad who'd passed away. And I found this investment opportunity that I thought was going to be really
Sure
effective
thing.
for us.
So
It was
I'm
a
like,
sure thing.
okay, honey, you run with it. And then we found out,
For-
totally, made off, kind of, bad. It was bad.
Fortunately, I didn't take the whole inheritance. I only took part of it.
Yeah.
And it produced nothing.
Yeah.
It lost all that money. And Bill came to me and he said, I'm going to tell you something and you're not going to like it, but I need you to say, I love you and we'll get through this together. And so even though there were more zeros, I honestly started laughing. I'm like, you loved me through my magic bean story.
Right.
If this is what it takes to love you, it is well worth every one of those dollars.
So that was kind of our introduction to why the alarms go off in finances. Because often in marriage, the alarm does go off when we're dealing with money. And the reason for it is we all express who we are in the way we handle money. Because even Jesus said, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Mm-hmm. So we're all emotionally attached to money, and we express who we are. And there's 4 basic ways that people approach money in expressing who they are. There is the decision maker. The decision maker is that person who they've got a mission and they want control of the decisions that are tied to that mission in life. And as long as they can make the decision, they're fine. So they will set goals financially and they will make the decision. Sometimes they check in with their spouse. Sometimes they just announce the decision. And when a decision's been made for you, you will emotionally react. So conflict jumps up in the marriage because of this decision that was made. It might be a great decision, but because it wasn't consulted,
No process.
it creates turmoil.
And then the second is the inspirer, and that's the person.
Those are the people who go to the conference and see a magic opportunity and commit to it.
Or they want to buy every daughter-in-law a spa package every Christmas, and I make decisions based on my hard work. I want to spend it on my grandkids. It's all relationship driven.
Right. And if you don't budget for it, they will find a way to spend it anyway. So what happens is it doesn't show up in the budget, it gets spent, and then the other spouse is upset about it. Mm-hmm. The third approach is the peacekeeper. And the peacekeeper is the one that they want money to be a non-issue.
Yeah.
I want our
No conflict.
Yeah, I just want it to be so simple, so automatic, so direct that it doesn't cause a problem. And when things get complicated and it causes a problem, they feel like they've lost their footing in life. And they seek to get the equilibrium back. And they usually do it by trying to shut everybody down.
That's peacekeeper.
That's the peacekeeper.
Okay,
And
got
there's
it.
the policy.
I think this one, I'm familiar with this one.
This
The policy holder.
Yeah, this one tends to be the person that actually writes the family budget, with the spreadsheet and everything. And if you don't go along with the family budget, it's not like you overspent.
Well, hold that thought.
Yeah.
I want you to get back to that. Because what the policy holder does is they set up a system and everything needs to fit in the system. And the way they think is if it fits the system, it's right. If it doesn't fit the system, it's wrong. So people express themselves in their budget. And if you don't have a financial system that allows both of you to express yourselves, money becomes the problem.
So one of the things we give in the secret language of successful couples is a budget that is formatted for these 4 different motivation styles.
Let's talk about goal setting. In the last couple of minutes, we're down to people are going to have to get the book, John, because we weren't able to cover everything.
Right.
But goal setting as a couple can be either, like you just said, it could be a great blessing or a great tragedy.
Yeah.
How do you go about the goal setting?
The purpose of setting goals is to stay in motion. Because Proverbs 16:9 says, in his heart a man makes his plans, but the Lord directs his steps.
Yeah.
So God's going to get your marriage where he wants it to go. You don't have to figure it all out ahead of time. But what goals do is it keeps you moving. It keeps you out of the boring routine of life. I got married so I could clean the house, take care of the garage, mow the lawn, go to work, chase kids, and that's all my life is. Goals gives you motion, so you're heading somewhere, so God can steer you as a couple. So the better you get at setting goals as a couple, the more you have the sense of we're on mission together and we're making decisions together. And couples who make decisions together, they create an emotional environment between the two of them that's cooperative and softer.
And it gives you a bigger reason to work hard at your marriage. And when you have goals that you're pulling in the same direction together, it gives you reason to hang in there together.
Yeah.
And so anytime we're hitting a marriage like hiccup, we then go back to that and we say, okay, how can we right now make our marriage a picture of hope? What do we need to add? What ingredient, what person, what methodology, what book, what resource do we need to add so that we gain hope, but others find hope in our
Yeah,
relationship?
it's so good. I'm going to, for the last question, it just kind of rolls right out of that, which is great. The difference that Jesus makes in a marriage and the importance of that. So, some people listening or watching may not have made that commitment or they're marginal on that commitment. So when you make the Lord the foundation of your relationship, for example, Gene and I often will say, especially if we have a disagreement, I won't use argument, but when we have basically an argument, if we are in that spot where we're reminding one another that our core foundation is our commitment to Christ, even before each other, that really does help solve some of the conflict we're experiencing. And we then now exhibit some of the fruit of the Spirit, right?
Yes,
to be a little more
exactly.
generous, a little kinder in the relationship. So speak to the importance of that as we end today's program.
We have simple life-giving messages that we choose to say when we're in conflict. Like, we won't leave each other's presence to drive someplace or speak someplace separately until we have said something that sounds like, okay, I'm going to hug you. I'd rather experience this stress with you than to be on a sunny beach in Hawaii. So we put, I'd rather be here with you, even though this is hard. We put that in. And we put that in because God is an overcomer. And it reminds us that there is no problem that is too big that God cannot send an answer for. He is the creator God. He can create a way forward for you and for me.
Well, and Jim, I appreciate you asking this question because it's really personal to me. Like I grew up in a home that I did not want to repeat. And at 16 years old, I started a personal relationship with Jesus. And I started that relationship because I'd seen the movie The Exorcist, and it scared me into reading the Bible.
That's smart.
Okay, so I came to know Christ because I wanted protection from what I'd seen. What I didn't count on is that God put resources inside of me when I trusted Christ that I didn't know were coming with the package. I just didn't want to be afraid. And the Bible talks about God shedding his love in our hearts. And I felt it happen. Like the day after I prayed to receive Christ, I woke up and I went, something's different. I got to go figure out what this different thing is. And what I discovered is that when you receive Christ as your Savior, the Holy Spirit takes residence inside of you, and he brings his power, and he brings his love. So when I look at Pam, I don't just ask the question, how can I love Pam? I ask the question, how can God love Pam through me? Because that's available to me now.
It's really good.
And I remember the day I got tired of people telling me that Jesus is a crutch for weak people. Yeah. I just had enough. And I went, you don't know him, do you?
You don't know my
And the guy
Jesus.
went, what do you mean? I go, if you'd met the Jesus that I met, you might say it's like getting on a motorcycle with a crazy driver and you got to hang on for your life because he's taking you faster and farther to places that you would never go on your own. Now, if you'd said that to me, I'd say you met Jesus. But this crutch for weak people, that's not the Jesus I met.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, he brought strength and power and love into my life so that I can love people who I have reasons not to love. And I have a deeper love for Pam than I thought was even possible. And I just came to Jesus because I didn't want to be afraid. I didn't realize all the resources he was bringing to my life that makes relationships better.
And Jim mentioned that earlier that we try to get to the fruit of the Spirit. And I think that is one of the key things that when we're in conflict, we naturally now pray, what fruit of the Spirit needs to happen here? What am I seeing? I'm seeing Bill's anxious. Oh, peace. That's a fruit of the Spirit. I could try to bring peace right now. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. All those things are available to us. And all of the names that Jesus said he is. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I'm the bread of life. I'm the light. I'm the life. I'm love. God is love. That's our verse, 1 John 4:19. We sign every book. God, is love.
And we love because he first loved us.
1 John
Amen.
4:19.
Well, that's a good place to end today. Thank you so much for being with us. Great content. Wonderful book, The Secret Language of Successful Couples. And we have covered some of it, but there's so much more. So get a copy, as we often do. Send a gift of any amount. We'll send you a copy of the book to say thank you for joining us in ministry. You know, last year we helped 170,000 couples. 170,000 couples through a marital crisis. So when I say we, that's you guys too, doing broadcasts and podcasts and other content. So with our great guests that we're able to have here on the radio program and the podcast and the different ways we use this content, that's what touches a person's life. So we're all in this together. Be part of the team. If you can donate on a monthly basis, which is how Gene and I support Focus. John, you and Dina do
too,
that.
We do, the Farrels do.
Yeah, the Farrels do. I mean, we've got like 50,000 couples that are supporting the ministry that way. But what a time to make it 100,000 couples, because we can reach so many more people and help so many more couples.
Yeah,
And we were one of those couples. One of the golden goals when we first got married is we're going to listen to Focus on the Family every day
that's so
together.
good.
And we have done that for decades now.
wow.
So that all of that your supporters have given helped us on our side too.
Oh, that's good.
I love that. And we invite you to be part of the team. Make a monthly pledge as you can, or a one-time gift of any amount. And we will say thank you for joining the support team, enabling us to do shows like this and provide so many resources.
Yep.
We'll send the book, The Secret Language of Successful Couples, to you as our thank you gift. Donate today when you call 800, the letter A in the word family, or stop by the program description. We've got the links right there for you. And on behalf of the entire team, thanks for joining us today for Focus on the Family with Jim Daly. I'm John Fuller, inviting you back as we once again help you and your family thrive in Christ.